Now, when we look at this chart, we see another thing that's going to have implications in the future, and that is there's the birth rates when the baby boomer was born. So the average birth rate was around 3 to 4 births per woman during that stage. When the baby boomers themselves were having children, the rate was between 2.5 and 1.7. If we actually follow women through their lives and say rather what the birth rate was, how many kids did you actually have, the moms of the baby boom had between 2.4 and 3.8 kids. They have a lot of kids. The baby boomers have less than 2 kids per person. This has a really interesting implication of historically we have looked to children to provide the primary support, emotional support, whatever it is, to their old aging parents. The baby boom's parents have lots of kids to draw on. The baby boom themselves has relatively few kids to draw on. And of course, some of those kids are their third wife's children from the second husband's married to the first high school sweetheart. There's not a lot of tight family bonding in some of these things. So the question in the future for the baby boomers is who's going to provide care for them? And if it's not their kids, they're going to look for a housing solution. Now, it may not be that they're looking for a care facility, they probably aren't, but what they're looking for is a peer community. Somewhere where they will have that network of people that they will see relatively frequently, that if they don't appear on the street for a day or two, somebody will inquire. So then again, another real estate opportunity of figuring out the never nested and the loosely nested, or the serially nested, or in the case of Arnie, the parallel nested families are going to get support as they age. And this will be on people who are 55 years of age and 60 years of age right now. Your typical baby boomers are asking themselves these questions with respect to their housing decisions. Now there's that 28% in terms of births. There's the 28% in terms of our age profile. But if we look after the baby boom, although there were 28% fewer births, there's only 18% fewer people. So something else is playing in our demography here other than the baby boom. And what that is, of course, is the increasing number of migrants to Canada, around net migration, around 270,000 people a year. Now this is net migration, it's not immigration numbers, because for every 5 migrants to Canada, a person leaves Canada. It's the only way Boston would have enough people who could score goals to be. Those were Canadians beating, in fact, an American goalie in the second half for Vancouver. So immigration, migration, increasingly important for not only the character of Canada and its labor force, but an increasing importance in our real estate markets. So that now it doesn't do harm to your business to know how to say hello in a few languages. The guy at the counter out there is Bangladeshi. I tried Hindi, Urdu, and Pakistani, and then finally just said thank you. You know, because you can only run so through. And last night I got confused and was speaking Hindi to somebody who was actually a Spanish-speaking person. But I'm old, I can do this kind of stuff. So it doesn't do any harm in your markets to also pick up some other languages. And I would suggest that if you're doing any business in the United States, any business at all, learn some Spanish. Learn some Sambrosa. Dos cervezas, por favor. Bilingualism is so great. The reason migration is important is the age profile. International migrants, the typical age of international migrants is 27 years of age. The reason we get that broader base in our age profile than we otherwise would have is because immigrants are younger. They are of very great importance in the entry-level housing market. There's the age profile of Alberta, and it is phenomenally different from the age profile of Canada. So anything that anybody standing back at, like the University of Toronto, not to mention any names, saying, boy, this is what your demographic future is wrong for the province of Alberta. Because your population bulge is not at age 50 52, 51. There. Your population bulge is actually at age 28. So you have two demographic profiles. So you have two distinct demographic markets to work with. And the interesting part about that is one is an entry-level market. And the other is the trade-up, move-up, buy-up market. So you've got way more diversity in your markets than in the rest of Canada. So younger people, more people now. Now, if we ask why do you, and then Calgary is different from Alberta as a whole. Calgary has, again, certainly the Alberta characteristic of two bulges, but Calgary also has a lot of people in that 30 to 45 age group corresponding to the head office function. If you take a look at Edmonton, it's sharply out at age 25 because that's tied into the workforce and the oil patch workforce. So distinctions even between Edmonton and Calgary. What created that secondary bulge isn't births. Alberta has essentially the same pattern of births, a little bit higher, but essentially the same pattern of births than Canada, below the replacement level, trending exactly the same way. So you have essentially the same birth pattern, a little bit higher. You have essentially that same life cycle pattern of postponing births, a little bit flatter. It's in the 25 to 34 age group, but essentially the same pattern. So it's not your fertility patterns that's shaping your population. It's interprovincial migration, 23,000 people a year. And the reason that's important is interprovincial migrants are even younger than international migrants. So the reason your age profile differs from the age profile of the rest of Canada is you have the rest of Canada's young people. Through interprovincial migration, you have the same pattern of kids staying at home, but the levels are much lower than the levels in Canada. But it's not because your kids don't stay at home. Your kids are staying at home just like they do everywhere else in Canada. But the kids in the rest of Canada that don't stay at home are in Alberta. So it pushes your numbers down because you have all of the people who got the kids to move out, those kids all came here. But your kids ain't going nowhere. Because who moves out first? Women or men? Kids, adult kids. Who moves out first? The women. Because they are tired of doing their brother's laundry. So if we take a look at then the demographics of Alberta, we can see there's about another 40% that are people born in the rest of Canada. And the reason, the rest of Canada. And then the remainder being explained by increasing net international migration. It's not as high on average as interprovincial, but some years it goes above interprovincial migration. And the reason it's going to continue up in this relative range is Canada's running out of young people. So in order for Alberta to get the young people, it's going to have to continue to expand its reach beyond the boundaries of Kamloops. That's where the person at the restaurant was from last night, actually. International migration, again, its importance, it's younger than the bulge in our population profile. So we have in those older age groups, people born outside the country, and you can see about 15% of the, 19%, I can't read it from there, 19% of the 75 plus population is people born in Europe. When people talk about the foreign born, those people didn't come here as 75-year-olds. They came here 40 years ago as 35-year-olds. So that's their current age, not their age. A younger profile from the population that migrated from Asia, and then other migration from the United States and other countries. So we've done the age profile, we've done births. We don't care about births, we're all born. We care about is death. Now, demographers never talk about death. We talk about life expectancy. It's like, we don't have garbage, we have trash. So life expectancy, what's happened in life expectancy? Well, life expectancy increased significantly in Alberta. About a decade for both men and women increase in life expectancy between 1955 and 2009. But note that the life expectancy for women is longer than life expectancy for men. People have pondered deeply as to why this might occur. I don't know. So our image of an older population has become an image of an older population of women. But if we look at the data on life expectancy, since 1976, life expectancy for men has grown faster than life expectancy for women. So the gap is closing from a 7-year difference, we're at about a 5-year difference, and it's trending towards about a 3% difference. So that's changing the character of our older population. We have to give up the image in the future of an older population comprised of women because the men are catching up. There's another phenomena which is rarely discussed but is of more importance than life expectancy. There's the number of men per 100 women by age group in Canada historically, and you can see in the 55 to 64 there are about 91 men per 100 women in 1981. In 1986 there's about 81 men per 100 women in the 65 to 74. 1996 there were 65 men per 100. Boy, you know, and then in 85 plus there are about 40 men per 100 women. That's when you want to be a guy on a cruise. And know how to dance. And remember, is it the blue pill or the red pill? Or, did I already take that pill? Maybe I'll take another. What's happening there, that phenomenal lack of balance between the number of men and the number of women, is if you were in the 55 to 64 age group in 1981, if you were 64, you were born in 1917, which meant you were 25 in 1941, which meant you had an unusually high probability of being killed in a war. And so the reason we have that pattern of a very low number of men per 100 women, yes, is partly explained by mortality rates, but is largely explained by the consequences of the Second World War. But since the Second World War, we have not seen in the Canadian context anywhere near that level of male mortality, so that balance is rebounding. So that if we look into the future, we're talking about a parity in the 55 to 64, almost parity 65 to 74, going from 65 to 85 men per 100 women, 75 to 84, and from 42, a 50% increase to 62 in the 85 plus population. Our seniors population is going to be radically different in the future. And our attitudes and our vision of housing hasn't kept up with this fundamental reality, and there's tremendous opportunities and problems are going to come. That's the face of the future population. The couple from Cranbrook, he grows it, she gets it into the States. I don't know how she does it, but whatever. And you know that it is whatever you want it to be. One of the primary things this does is it brings about a change in when houses are sold. Because generally the trigger has been male dies, female sells house, moves into rental property. Now they both live longer, male living proportionately longer, they either stay in the house or when they make the decision is to downsize or find an alternative property. Really interesting opportunities for real estate in here. Problems because there's no push to sell the house. Opportunities because you can work with people to say, okay guys, you've now got this much time together as a couple, what about this, what are these alternatives? So a change in when and how the house. Other issue that comes out of this, average life expectancy today for a 65-year-old in Alberta, live another 18 years for a male, female another 21 years. Get out to 2031, it's going to be 20 years for male and 23 years. So that's the average. So on average, people should be preparing for males for 18 more years of life, female for 22 years of life. But hey, how many people here think they're average? You see, you put your hand up. Do you realize you're the only person in the room who did that? You can't be the average, man. The people who aren't average are the average. You're the average on average, or on average or something.